Can you stand right there so I can stand right there so I can get your
Back in the camera. I done run over once.
Okay.
He got locked right in.
Everybody's attention. Just have a few notes here and then just kind of scatter around. So again, I want to thank everybody for attending the 30th annual entry union. I want to encourage everybody to get a copy of the bulletin we have. It shows what we're going to be doing. There's an agenda on the inside and the things that we want to do today. So if you would get a copy of that. We want to make sure that everybody has signed in because toward the end of this, we want to recognize everyone who served in the military and recognize that as well at the end of our presentation here. So, and I don't want to take up a lot of time because we have two really good speakers and I want to give them as much time as possible. So anyway, make sure to sign in and do that. Again, we have Gayle he'll begin. He'll talk for roughly around 15 minutes. Laura will speak for around 15 minutes. I want to mention a few things real quick. Anybody who brought old photos, I may have already got most of them, but if you brought old photos, I've scanned them in so we can share them. So everybody, please make sure to do that if you have. There's a suggestion box out there, if you would. If you have suggestions on this, in other words, this is your reunion. If you want to make it better, if you have suggestions on what would make it better, put that in the suggestion box. As an example, activities for kids. I don't know, whatever. If you have someone who make a good speaker for next year or whatever, if you would just put that in the suggestion box. Let's see. I'm about to forget the thing that you mentioned about the yellow sheets. Right? There are blank yellow sheets, genealogy type sheets up there for those who haven't filled those out. The ones who filled them out about 5 years ago, a copy of that is up there. So if you'll filter through those, look at it, and there are a few folks who have passed on, and if your father or grandfather or grandmother's name is up there, you can have that. If they passed on. So all of that is up there, if you would. So let's keep that in mind. Again, I don't want to take up a lot of time. We've got some really good speakers. I've heard both of them speak before. They're great. Is there somebody to mention before?
We'd like to reserve about 5 minutes for recognize Billy.
Billy's going to speak about Euclid's son. Euclid's son, right.
Euclid was here a couple of years ago, a blind man.
Yeah. Without further ado, Gayle Raines.
Thank you very much, Greg. I know that Greg said a lot of good things about me about speaking. What I'm really humbled about is knowing that you're running out of talent. That's why I get to speak. So I've come today, I've come alone. I have 3 children and a wife. One child is at a ball game in Alabama, one's in Nashville to be at a ball game, and the other one's involved in a marriage ceremony down in West Tennessee. And my wife, we're sleeping in separate bedrooms. We're living in different parts of the house. We eat meals in different places. But I'm doing whatever it takes to keep the marriage together. But she's at work. She's at work. She works for Union Planters Bank, and she's in Morgantown today, so she can't be with me either. In growing up as a young person in Cannon County, there was always the shadow of Warren County and the roots of my family. And I was always told by my grandfather, when I was a little boy, I had a great blessing in my life. I came to stay with my grandpa and my grandmother when I was about 5 and 6 years old during the summertime. During that time, Grandpa didn't drive. He never had a driver's license. And he'd always depend on someone else to take us everywhere. So we walked a lot of places and met a lot of neighbors. But time to time, one of my aunts, Aunt Jean or Aunt Carlene, Thelma would take us somewhere. In doing so, I got to meet some of the older Rangers that I remember. There was Joe and Ed and Tom and Mr. Sam. Now, Mr. Sam had a man this past week ask me about, he knew I was coming to this. He remembered him as a small boy when Sam was a peddler. And when he drove a team, and he was down in what they call Ivy Bluff area, and in that community, and he said he went off to war in World War II, and he come back and he never wanted to peddle anymore. He wanted to do something different. But as I look across the audience, I see a great mixture of our ages, and I wanted, my part of the presentation was to show how important every part of us and every one of us is to each other. I want to cap and make us realize something of the brevity of time. I brought a sheet of paper that I seem to have left some that fell out before I got here, so that's even better. Now, what I want you to recognize with me is a time in our life. Last year when we met here, September the 11th, had not happened in our country. Everyone here can remember where they were September the 11th, can't you? Every one of us can. If we asked even some of the children, they'll all hold up their hands. But if we trace back in time to a different time, and we go back to, let's say, July the 20th of 1969, and the first man landed on the moon. How many of you remember that time? Okay. If we go on back to August in 1950, there was an invasion of South Korea by North Korea. A lot of us didn't, I wasn't born, or barely as a child at that time. Let's say I was 6 months old. How many of you can remember that you didn't know where Korea was, but you heard about it, and later you realized where you were? Part of it. How many of you can remember in December the 7th of 1941?
My
Birthday.
My birthday.
Your birthday. How many remember the day that the war ended? September 2nd, 1945. That was a great day of celebration. And you remember that day for what it came about. But in that same month, in the latter part of that month, at that same time, there was a great tragedy that happened in the family. One of the boys and his wife was killed, and their 2 sons was left to be raised by another brother. And I tell you that because I remember more about that brother from my grandfather and how he told me of the love of that brother that would take another brother's children. And I see Wayne Lee and John Curtis both here today, and I'm glad you're both here because that's how I knew these boys. Never met them until I was grown. But I remembered of the love that was shown, or told to me that was shown to that family. Now, as I grew up in Cannon County and coming over into Warren County, one of the greatest questions that I was ever asked was how much kin I was to Jay Raines. I tell you that because you always lived in the shadow of that in the decisions that Jay Raines made. I never met Jay Raines. I had the privilege of working with Taft Fuller. When in 1968, I worked for the Arms Department before I left to go to the Army in July of that same year. And he was my ditch digger. He was one that dug the bell holes where we run cast iron work. And one day, someone made a statement, go over and help that Raines boy. And I can remember the first time that he looked at me, and we just called him Pop on the job. He's very distant to everyone. He never really talked to anyone. And he came to me and he started asking me questions about the Raines and whose boy are you and who's your grandpa, and then I asked him who he was. And when he told me who he was, I was stunned to be able to meet him. I'd seen a picture of him. I'd heard of him. And then I asked him about being in prison all that time. And he told me a great story that I never wanted to go to prison. He told me stories about, because I asked him about his relationship with J. Raines, and he talked about the choices that he made to put him in prison where he was, and they weren't the best of friends anymore. They just weren't. And then Clifton Cotton was the other boy that was involved in that time of life that I met his niece, talked to her. And the power of the influence that he had that made bad choices that robbed those men of a greater part of the youth of their life. And I remember that because they felt like they had been raped at a time of their life that could never come back. I'm reminded in the God's Word of many things, and I want to read that to you because I remember how I felt when people asked me how much kin I was to J. Raines. But then when I go over to the edge of Rutherford County and I meet the Taylor families that was involved, the young man that was involved in the wreck, Wayne Lee and John Curtis's dad, I remember meeting him and how humble he felt in my presence. And I know that humbleness of decisions that is made that you can't change now, and you can't take back when it happened. And I think of the strongness in our lives of how we have endured things that's happened in our lives, and how we've lifted up our families through these things to be greater conquerors. In the book of Psalms, in chapter 90, it tells us, this is Moses doing the speaking. In verse 9 it says, "For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our year are 70, if by reason of strength there be 80 years. Yet is there strength and labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. Who knoweth the power of thy anger, even according to thy fear, so is thy wrath. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom." Here Moses talks about 70. Now, I brought these pinto beans because I wasn't going to cook them. I always talked about loving the smell of pinto beans and how that is. Now, if we were to take these beans and put them in this bowl and let each bean represent a Saturday in your life, that when you get to be 70 years old, now some of us don't qualify yet. Don't raise your hand if you do, it's okay. But some of us here realize how precious you are in our lives. That at 70 years old, as Moses said right there, you've got a full bowl. You've lived a full life at 70. The greatness about that is, and the treasure of that in your life is, the presence that you are here today in our lives. And what you can be to us, an encouragement to our life. Because the past is behind you, the future lies ahead of you, but the greatest thing is the present that you bring to us today. If you can take your life and recognize how valuable you are to us, and every day of your life on a Saturday, put a bean in a separate bowl. How many beans would be in this one? So you know how many beans you would put in that one. But the preciousness is that God is giving you a great time in our lives for us that are younger to be able to enjoy what you can share with us and what you can encourage and help us in our lives. Now, I tell you that because I have a little pamphlet here. In this little pamphlet, I asked my grandmother when she was in her 80s, I said, "Grandma, tell me the first time you met Grandpa and write it down. Let me know. And write it down and leave it for me." Now, she told me that she did that, and Grandma passed away in her 90s, 92, and I never did get this book. And later on, when Aunt Corjean was cleaning up in a cedar chair, she found it. And you see, it's valuable. Now, I wish every page in it was filled. She told me about a chimney that was built by her father that's still standing and erected. But the preciousness of what you can do as older ones is what you can share with us. Write it down. I bought a book for my dad to write things for me. because these are valuable to us, and these are our legacy that help us. One thing that I say always to my children is the great character. I had two daughters and a son. Of my daughters, I think of my great aunts and the faith that they had, and Aunt Mary and Aunt Zach. And I said, you children have that same kind of endurance and faith, and how that God wants you to raise your children. I talked to my son about being a leader, and how that I seen the leader ability and the kindness. I took him to every graveyard in Canning County, in Warren County, and I told him that I knew of. The reason that you have such a great impact upon others is those that have went before you, that were leaders in their families and communities. And I said, you have that to build your life upon and to go forward. So every day of your life, you get you a bowl and some pinto beans, you put you one in there, because it's a present that God has given you. And be that present to us that are younger, and share with us what it means to be a part of the descendants of the Raines family. Thank you.
Well, I don't have a bean story. Back in 1974, when I first started searching for my family, wanting to know about my ancestors, I came to Cannon County and Warren County, and I asked some of the people who are the oldest residents in this area, because I want to find out about my family. Well, I first went to see, and some of you might have known, Tobe Freeze. And I sat down, everybody called him Uncle Tobe. I sat down with Uncle Tobe and I said, I want you to tell me some stories about my family. And I was talking about the Raines family, and I was talking about the Lowe family. And he brought up the name of Aunt Goody. Well, Aunt Goody's real name was Rosanna Jane. And I said, Uncle Tobe, why did you call her Goody, Aunt Goody? Everybody called her Aunt Goody. He said, because she was one of these women that was good to everybody in her community. He said, in fact, she saved my life. And I said, well, Uncle Tobe, how'd she do that? He said, she had a child at the same time that I was an infant. My mother's milk dried up. He said, Aunt Goody took me home with her and nursed me along with her child and saved his life. The other lady I went to see, Mrs. Baxter, was Aunt Hessie Peeler, and I know that some of you know her. The laughter in her voice was heartwarming to me, because she told me funny little stories. A number of years later, after she passed on, two of her daughters wrote me letters and said, someone told me that you have a tape of our mother. So I sent that to them. Now we're going to talk about the wars. Asia Raines, that was in the War of 1812, and a lot of you that are here was here about 5 years ago when we dedicated a headstone to him, and Eugene Raines and some other people put this headstone up in the French cemetery. We would all like to say that we are directly descended from Asia, because he is in all the history books and he was so important. But we cannot prove that he is a direct descendant of ours. We are definitely related to him, but I believe that Larkin Raines' father was a John Raines and his mother was a Jane Williams. We do not have documentation to prove that, but that we For a long, long time, I thought Larkin came from Asia, but he didn't. So Asia was in the War of 1812, and then we have the Civil War, and we have cousins that served in that war. One was William Presley Raines, that's buried in the Hewlett Cemetery, and I also ordered a headstone for him, and we had a dedication here in this building a number of years ago. He had a cousin whose name was William Harrison Raines, and he was on his way home and was killed by a bushwhacker and was taken to a hospital in Rome, Georgia. And that's where he died. And he is buried in a cemetery in Rome, Georgia. And my husband and I found his headstone, his military headstone, at the cemetery there in Rome, Georgia. Next comes World War I, and that is John William Raines served in that war. And then came Bert Obadiah Raines in World War II. And he did in the service what he did best. He cooked. Now, the search can go on for our Raines ancestors. And one of you just might have that secret or that one bit of information that we're looking for on a piece of paper, in a Bible. So if you, in looking through the things that belong to your parents or your grandparents, if you find something that you think might have some information that would be of interest to the Raines family, either get it to me or get it to Eugene, Eugene will get it to me, and we want these records preserved, and you are the secret to that. You might be the secret to that. I do want you to see the pictures that are on the wall. I have pictures of, this is America Elizabeth Raines, who married a Herndon. She ended up in Texas. And this picture here is Sophrona Bracken. Her father was John Bracken, and her mother was Eleanor Raines. Now, what I try to do, and I do correspond with a number of people through email, is I try to get as much information, as many pictures. These pictures were sent to me through the computer because they found out through us corresponding together that I was related. So my speech is kind of short, but I hope it's meaningful. And I have made copies, as Greg said, on the table of you that filled out the form for me 5 years ago. Now, I remember that some of you came in when we handed you the form and they said, we don't know anything beyond maybe our parents or our grandparents. And I said, fill out what you know, and maybe I can fill out some more information. So through getting death certificates, which I have a copy of some death certificates that I just picked up this week in the Tennessee State Archives, I have been able to fill out some more of those sheets giving you additional information. So go through the stack, pick yours out, or if yours is not there, your father's or maybe your grandfather that they filled out. If you have never filled out one, please, before you leave today, pick up one, fill it out, and give it back to me. I will make copies, and we'll see to it that Greg and Eugene have that copy because we, the notebook, you probably, this notebook here is exactly the same as what's laying back there on the table that was filled out by you 5 years ago, and we're going to continue to add to it. Believe it or not, 47 people filled out one of these forms 5 years ago. And I want Greg and Eugene to keep this and us keep adding to it because it's great to look at these sheets and see that we're all related. Thank you so much.
You know, as Gayle mentioned, you know, September 11th has really changed our world. And it makes us think about those who have served this country. So just real quickly, those, and I'm going to name your name, and if you would stand while we do this. Those who are in our midst who have sometime during their life served in the military. Gene Raines, you can stand. Edward Jones, you don't mind standing. Clark Raines. My dad was in the Air Force. Edward was in the Air Force, and Clark was in the U.S. Army. Let's give these men a round of applause. That is true. Are there any others that you'd like to just mention their name, that although they're not here, maybe they're right now serving our country, or maybe in the past they have? Is there anyone you want to mention? If you would just stand up and say, you know, my dad or my cousin or whoever. Is there anyone you'd like to recognize?
Vietnam, son-in-law, was in service.
My husband, Everett, was in service.
Okay. You didn't put that down for me.
Oh, did. He did.
Everett?
Oh. And I was in civil service.
Okay. All right. We need to recognize it. Is there anyone else we need to recognize that we want to recognize every year? Go ahead.
My father was in the war.
Right, which is- was in Vietnam. Anyone else?
No race.
Well, that's his name.
My husband.
Let's give these men a round of applause.
I had two brothers to serve in World War II, and one of my brothers was supposed to go on this boat, get a clothes deal. It was sunk. He didn't go. For some reason or other, they didn't let him go on, but his clothes did get on that boat, and they both come back alive.
Fantastic.
And also John William, you mentioned, he had two sons that was in the service, Jack and Ralph. Ralph's dead, Jack lives in general.
And maybe next year we can have an entire list of
They were
everyone.
supposed to be here.
Yeah, an entire list of everyone who has served. On this is sort of a dubious distinction, I guess you could say, but we want to recognize who would be the oldest person who is here. The oldest person. Let's start. Everybody raise your hand if you're around 60. Everybody who's 70, keep your hand up. Everybody who's 80, keep your hand up. Everybody who's 85, keep your hand up.
86.
86, fantastic. That's it, this is yours, and this is something. Fantastic. Let's give it a round. Now, I need help on this one. I need help on this one because, geography is not taught in our schools anymore. But whoever had to travel the farthest to get here, let's start off with, now go ahead, and where are you from now?
Geraldine, Alabama.
Geraldine, Alabama. Now let's keep in mind where Geraldine, Alabama is. Who had to travel? Where's some other, is there somebody from Indiana?
Albertville, Alabama.
Albertville, Alabama.
Rainsville.
Near Rainsville.
120 miles.
Indiana.
Muncie, Indiana.
Muncie. Now help me, guys. How many miles are you away from home?
About 350, 340. Oh,
About 390 miles.
309 miles?
Beg pardon?
How far away from home are you?
About 150 miles.
150 miles. Anybody further than, how many did you say? 300?
About 390.
Anybody here further than 309 miles away from home? Look, we have us a winner. Give Randy a round of applause there. All right, let's see here. That's all I have here. We have couple of reunions ago, and of course, he is now gone, but let's have a few words from Billy about his dad.
Talk about the guitars too, I want to know about this music.
Are you going to take care of all that?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Kyle, why don't you bring one of the guitars and someone else bring one up here. But I'm not going to take a lot of time. I know everybody's getting a little hungry, but I do want to say it's my privilege to be here today. And I want to thank Milton for inviting me, and of course y'all for inviting us. And it's always good to be around the kin folks. And I want to say a little something about Dad. He was very impressed with his visit up here, and he spoke of it a lot. And he planned on coming back. I think he'd been here today if he was alive. But many of y'all may not know him, but I will say a little bit about some of his accomplishments in life. He was blind. He had an accident with scissors, and he lost his sight at an early age. The accident was when he was 3. At that time, they didn't know very much about the optical nerves, but anyway, he lost his sight completely by the time he was 6. And he went away to the School for the Blind in Talladega. To get on with the story, it was considered a major handicap, but he didn't look at it as a handicap. He looked at it as an opportunity for him to use some of the other strengths that he had. So he exercised his mind every day. He's pretty, I guess you'd say, kind of a famous guy in our area. There's not very many people that didn't know him, but some of his accomplishments, he was the first blind person ever to get a loan from FHA to build a home and also buy a farm. And he operated about a 200-acre farm where he raised cattle and crops. And he done well. He paid the farm off in a 30-year loan in 15 years, which a lot of the neighbors close by lost their farms from just bad management. But he was a very smart guy. I want to get across, everybody has strengths and weaknesses, but just because you have an accident that knocks out one of your, what would be considered a strength, it gives you an opportunity a lot of times to make a difference in life and people around you. I should have brought some of his books today, but we were underway and we didn't really think about bringing, but he wrote an autobiography that tells about his life. And his politics, he was elected to the House of Representatives for 12 years in Alabama.
First blind guy to ever hold that off.
And he was a Little League baseball coach, which he was on the talk show or To Tell the Truth. Y'all might remember that one, the older people that are here. But he had a lot of accomplishments, but I guess the biggest one that I can think of is just his care for people. You know, y'all that remember him knew that when you talked to him, he was genuine. He wanted to know more about you. He wanted to know something about you that he could remember and pass on to somebody else. And, you know, family reunions, you don't see very many of them that's been around and meeting for 30 years like y'all have. That's to be credited. You really need to thank some people that's holding this together because it's just very unusual to see a family stay together like this and that cares about their heritage. And again, I don't want to take up a bunch of your time, but you know, I do want to say it's been a privilege to be here, and I've enjoyed it, and I'd like to talk to as many of you as I can. Any questions you got about my dad, I'd be very happy to speak with you about. But a little something about his dad. They were going to church one Sunday morning, and they ran off of the bridge down about 3 or 4 miles from the house. And the remarkable part about it was that they were taken together. There was no suffering. It was an instant accident that took their lives together. But there's just some real remarkable things that happened that morning that helped me to accept the loss, because I was very close to them, and You know, it was just a real tough situation, part of my life, but, you know, I've looked at it and it's made me stronger because I know the life that he led and the many people that he helped along the way. And, you know, it was amazing, the night at the funeral home, that they were both there for one night. It started early, and I guess finally they had to close the doors about 11 o'clock. They said the line went all the way through the funeral home, about 5 people wide, through every part of a huge funeral home, and all the way out the door into the highway.
They said it was the largest crowd that they'd ever had at a funeral there. They've been in business about 60 odd years.
But he was a remarkable man, but the main thing I want you to remember about him was his care for other people. You know, he really had a sincere love for other people, and he was willing to help anybody in any way. And I heard so many stories about the way that he had helped the people in that area just from that night that we were at the wake. But that's what we all that's our obligation as you know, as a Christian, you know, to do that. And I think from what I've seen, you know, this group of people is Christian people, and I just want to just emphasize that fact that you know, God put us here for a reason. A lot of times we don't necessarily go along with it at first, but we need to work with people, especially the youth, to build that character and that'll carry on, because it's not going to be how much money you left behind or, you know, that's spoke about. It'll be what kind of person you are and what kind of friends you had, and you all want to leave that kind of tradition and this family definitely has it. And that's all I have to say. But y'all are welcome to look at these instruments. There's a little story on them that tells a little bit about each one. Dad carved the necks out of the material that's listed here. That like this one, for instance, come from a building that he lived in while he was at the School for the Blind for 3 years. And you know, he made this. It's 151 pieces of mitered wood that come from that building. But you know, he loved to make things with his hands. And you know, we're only as handicapped as we let ourselves be. You know, and a lot of times us that have 100% of all of our senses are sometimes the most handicapped of all, because we don't take advantage of the opportunities that we have in our own strength. But y'all just look at these, and if you have any questions, I'll be around.
I'd like to say one thing. You could save me a little over $10,000 by making one phone call. I got blown away about 7 years ago, and they didn't intend to pay me, and I had insurance. And after almost 2 years, I went up to Euclid. I said, Euclid, I said, is anything can be done? He said, let me make one phone call. In 15 minutes, the guy called me back from Montgomery. And in about 20 minutes, the guy from Nashville, Tennessee called me on the insurance company. He said, we want to settle with you now. And the guy didn't intend to pay me. He wrote me a personal check for over $10,000 that he had in his, he already had my money in his bank evidently. But he wrote me a personal check for over $10,000.
I didn't mention the broom. My dad was a broom maker too. At one time, he had the 4th largest broom manufacturing company in Alabama. He had 60 of the neighborhood boys and men that worked for him in that factory. And that's one of the last brooms that he made. He still continued to make them. And it's pretty rare. There's been just hundreds of people come by one more broom that he made. But I thought, you know, it would help the community y'all maybe want to auction it off, you know, keep it, because they're pretty rare where we're at. But he was known for his business to the roof. That was kind of his trademark.
He would like to auction it off and let the money go to the Range Reunion Clergy and Eagle.
How are we gonna handle that? Who's an auctioneer?
We want to do that before or after the meal, or what'd you have in mind? I don't know.
Yeah, better do it when we-
Okay. Well, I'm not an auctioneer. Who's an auctioneer here?
Kyle, can do it. Get back, Kyle, and auction it.
Kyle, you can do it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I can't
You can do it.
I'll get Kyle.
He's already got $5. There you go.
You go back there. You got 5.
You gonna do it?
I'll be at 10.
You already got 10 over there. It's easy. Go and get set there. Come on. Come on, Kyle.
You got 10.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Go help me.
Help me do it.
He got his name on this room right here. And when they made his shop into electric, I was the first one that he hired to help him make rooms in between crops. I could never make a room as fast as he could, and him blind. And but anyway, what are we bid on this room right here right now?
We've
We
already
got
got-
$20 over here. What we got over here? Down here 30. Down here, you got, I believe we had a 20. Is that right? Yeah, you got how much?
10.
10. Okay, you got 10, 5, 10, 15. Down here, you're right here 20. Yeah, 20. Okay. Okay, how about 20? How about 22? Down here 22.
25.
25. Okay, 25. 25 1. How about 20? How about 30? Anywhere. Do I hear 30 anywhere? 25 once? 25 twice? Do I hear 30? 25 sold to
Della Range.
Helen.
Della.
Right?
Della.
Della.
Helen.
Della.
All right, Della.
We'll have a word
Just give it to me.
offering thanks for the food, and then we'll be ready.
Everybody bow with us.
Everybody bow.
Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for the blessings that you give us every day. And we with a thankful heart, as always, we be mindful of these things and never take them for granted. Never take our family or friends or loved ones for granted either. May we love them, each and every one. Heavenly Father, we gather together today. We bless each family represented here. Many have come from near and far. We pray that thou will see them safely back on their journey. Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this food that's set before us, such a hand that you have prepared it. Be with each and every one of us as we go down through the road of life. May we join hands and not only the family and loved ones, but as your children. All these things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I'll give that to